First up, we have the evolution of IT infrastructure to HCI and hybrid clouds by Nutanix. I'll hand over it to Ahmed Rashad. Yes, just go full screen with your presentation, please.
Okay, sounds great. Thank you, everybody, and welcome to today's session. My name is Ahmed Rashad. I'm a Nutanix technology consultant here for Nutanix in Middle East. And for today's session, we're going to have an introduction about Nutanix. So the evolution that when Nutanix started, how we ended up, how Nutanix works, and what are the features and the value and the benefits that you'll get from it, and how we do integrate with the backup. And we have Veeam today in the session to speak about joint products and integrations between Nutanix and Veeam. So let's get started. So I like to use some analogy first to make the idea and the explanation for Nutanix easier. So I'm going to start with how the infrastructure or the IT infrastructure evolved till we reach it to hyper-converged and hybrid clouds. So first, let's talk about, I'll map it to coffee making, how coffee making started and how the IT infrastructure started. So basically, the traditional way of doing coffee here. So you bring the beans, you bring a grinder, you have boiled water, you bring the ingredients yourself, and you have to do it step by step in order to get a certain type of coffee. The same thing happens with the IT infrastructure. So we, as a IT team inside any organization, we go and buy our servers, we buy our application, storage, network, backup, everything by itself. And since we are the experts, we know how to tweak this this infrastructure in order to make it applicable for the applications and whatever we want to deliver to the business. And the idea of the traditional, we have most of the end users now are currently having this traditional environment, whether they bring the virtualization, whether they bring other stuff in order to enhance it. But at the end, it's silos that you have to manage by yourself. And if there is a problem in any part of it, you have to diagnose it by itself. Then a concept came called converged infrastructure. So converged infrastructure, if you map it to coffee making, this is like the Americano or the filter coffee that you have. So vendors started to simplify things a little bit. So if I need a certain type of coffee, there is a machine for it. So this, for example, you just bring your coffee, grind it, and you put it in this machine and you get an Americano. There is another machine that does a cappuccino, another machine that does an espresso. There is different machine for each purpose. So the same thing happened to the infrastructure. So we started making converged system. Vendors started to bring the servers and the storage and the networking and try to tweak it and combine it in certain configurations in order to serve one purpose. So you have one converged system for databases, and you have another converged system for visualization, another one for VDI. But this makes things easier, but at the end, you have to manage silos as well. Again, the problem is this is not completely in harmony. So each vendor by itself, you have to do the troubleshooting, the upgrading, all the maintenance and OpEx, it's completely different. So from here came Nutanix. So what does Nutanix do? Any type of coffee that you require, you will get. So you just have one click, you need a cappuccino, you get a cappuccino. An Americano, you get an Americano. Whatever type of coffee that you want, you don't care much about what's happening in the background. You don't have to be an expert or a super skilled person in order to manage this. Same thing goes for its cleaning, for example. So it's those machines, they have one button to clean themselves. The maintenance is very easy. So the idea of HCI came here just you have one screen and you can manage everything, and everything runs as a software in the back end. And all you have to do is you request your type of infrastructure, and you get this. If you think this idea is new, it's not. So what you see now is this is a Google data center. So basically, you don't know where's the storage. You have no idea where's the network. They're just modular x86 servers connected to a network with a bunch of disks. And there is a file system or a software that runs and expands and scales on top of all those x86 modules. So basically, what Nutanix does, we took a portion out of this and we put it inside your data center with one screen, so you can have any type of infrastructure as a feature there, and you can consume it just at once. So basically, you don't have to be an expert to do that. So the good thing about it is there's no single point of failure. There is no bottlenecks. The system is always on. The self-healing happens in the background. You don't have to take care so much about the maintenance. There are always analytics, management. You have control, and you can see your inventory. And it's always a visualization. You don't have to be a super expert, as we said. The other thing is the freedom of choice. So Nutanix give you the freedom of choice not to lock you in a certain vendor. For example, you bought the storage at one point and you want to, at the end of its life, you want to forklift it and bring another storage and do a migration. So the good thing about Nutanix and about the cloud features that it doesn't get old. So the only thing that you need to do is just update the software and you're good to go. You got new features, you got new icons, you got everything that's completely new. And the good thing about Nutanix, if you want to use any kind of x86 hardware, you're not logged in. Whether you need to use Nutanix, other vendors as well, x86 servers to build your infrastructure. You can choose multiple hypervisors. You can have Nutanix HV, which is built in VMware or Hyper-V, even though you can have Nutanix on the public cloud, whether you want to deploy it on AWS, Azure, GCP, or Nutanix own public cloud. So you have the freedom of choice where to build your infrastructure, what are the components there, so you are not locked in a certain technology. So let's look at the foundation for Nutanix. What's the components there? So basically, it's completely software-defined everything. So the compute, the data protection, the storage, the networking, virtualization, all of this is kind of a software. You don't have to worry about buying certain stuff for hardware to integrate that. And as well, you can have application automation and you can have a multi-cloud management, which we call the hybrid cloud, in which part of your data center could be on-premise, part of it could be on a public cloud if you want. So how does Nutanix works? So basically, as we said, it's normal x86 servers like the one you saw in the cloud, added to a bunch of disks in there. And there is a controller virtual machine on each node or each server of the x86 that intercommunicates and integrates together to form file system, which we call Nutanix distributed file system. And it makes you a single pool of resources and storage. And this is basically connected to a hypervisor on top, which we call the data center 4. So what do you need to expand? There is no limit. So the more you add more resources to your infrastructure or cluster, the more that you will get. So basically, it's like you're charging your phone with more credits. So the more resources you add, the file system is going to expand, the more CPUs and memory that you'll get inside there. I want to make it look like this. If you can see, this is our traditional disk. So bringing every hardware and silo inside the data center and put it as an application, as you see, that's your normal disk is only changed to just small application that does the service. So if you look at Nutanix portfolio here, those might look like product names, but they are features in the same screen. So for today, what we're going to speak about, how Nutanix is getting managed, and we'll speak about the different features that you see there. Those features are already built into one screen. So this is most of your data center services that you have. So if you're looking at the basic management, if you're looking at the backup, and we'll speak today in cooperation with Veeam about Nutanix Mine, which is an integrated solution between Veeam and Nutanix, and how the backup can be integrated in the same screen that you manage for the infrastructure and how it works. So Muhammad just today is going to speak about this part. We speak about the different type of storage that you can have it at one place, and you can start just small as 1 terabyte to scale to petabytes in the same platform. So whether you're having a NAS, you're having object storage or files or whatever kind of need that you need for storage, you will have it there. Also about the network and security. So we have a feature there called Flow, which manages like a firewall and microsegmentation security for your environment. And it's basically, you can call it as a firewall without using access lists. So it's, if you just get trained on it 1 hour, you can be easily an expert on how to do access lists and do a microsegmentation. The container services like Kubernetes, it's a built-in feature inside Nutanix, which we call Carbon. And there is a copter view for the Prism in which you can see all the sites and replicate between them. In terms of disaster, we have database as a service, multi-cloud automation, and much more. So today we're going to cover just part of it in the sake of our time. And later on other sessions, we're going to cover more. So I'm going to start first with the Prism management, how all of these features get managed. So if you looked for today, this how your data center and the screens look like. So if a system admin, even the management, needs to look at a lot of screens in order to manage their data center. So whether it's the applications, it's the server hardware, whether it's the security, virtualization, data protection, the storage, you have to maneuver between all those screens. So Nutanix, same as the cloud as well, you only have one screen for everything, and there is nothing to deploy more. So all our features, as we said, and applications that you just click on it, enable it, and it's good to go. So as you see here you have all your layers, whether virtualization, the infrastructure, management, the silos of storage and stuff, the operation and analytics, you're seeing everything live, and each one in the organization is having his own view based on his role. So for example, I am an application or database administrator. I will have my own screen that looks at this part. There is the management level who needs to look at the trend analysis, the consumption levels, and how they are saving cost. There is a screen for that. If I want to have a copter view on my entire sites, there is a screen for that, and I can customize those screen as I want. So in terms of the upgrades, so one of the key problems that we are facing inside the traditional infrastructure is the upgrades. So the maintenance window is very, very important. So in the cloud, you don't receive an email from Google or AWS or Azure that we are sorry, today we're having maintenance, please make sure that you shut down your virtual machines. That doesn't happen. So the same thing goes with Nutanix. So this is basically if you're upgrading your hypervisor in a normal stage in your traditional infrastructure, there are a week at least to just for the vCenter itself, for example, for VMware, to do the planning for the upgrade. And there's another week to start doing the pre-upgrades and the post-upgrades. And then you'll take a maintenance window and you have to follow on this maintenance window. So in Nutanix, if you're just connected to Nutanix backend or you're just a user of Nutanix, there is one file that gets analysis on all your infrastructure, and basically you just click on an upgrade, and the entire infrastructure gets upgraded in the background. You don't have to intervene. The availability, it goes by itself. You don't have to worry about that. And your users and your business is running without any problem. And in 1 hour, you're done when you're having maybe your lunch. We have customers here upgrading their infrastructure just remotely, easily, and it's almost online. So here I'm going to show you how this is a simple demonstration. We are upgrading now 2 clusters, one for the database and one for the VDI. And this is completely running production. And we're gonna show you a live demonstration now. This is just 2 clusters at the same time getting upgraded with the applications just completely running. Have an Oracle environment as well. It's completely running live. And what we're going to do now is going to upgrade the infrastructure. So it gives you the recommendation. So with even the drivers, the firmware and everything, it gets upgraded as well in the one click. Your environment is running normally in the background, so nothing gets affected. And this ensures you the high availability that you get normally from services. Still, all your environment is running completely live. So you can manage as well, starting zooming to very simple things till you get a very copter view of everything. Looking at the storage perspective inside Nutanix. So Nutanix had 3 types of storages there, which is most commonly used by everyone. So you buy silos for it, like NAS or SAN or object storage. They are all available there. So I'll start with the block storage. So the block storage, basically you have all the enterprise storage capabilities that's completely built in. I want to highlight here a very important part, which is the data locality. So the thing is, you're running the virtual machine from inside the storage. So there is no external storage that gets connected to the servers in order to run the application. So running application from within the server and the storage itself. And this big thing makes the latency and the performance of the application and the virtual machines much more better than normal traditional way. The part for the performance and the tiering, you don't have to worry about it. So the Nutanix file system is smart enough to understand the application behavior and place the blocks and the data for any application on the right tier, starting from the normal hard disks to flash till memory. And it's as well as smart to understand the way of data efficiency in terms of compression and deduplication at that part, and you can granularly edit those features or leave it automatic to the system to do the tweaks for you. For the data protection part, so basically if you're looking at the disaster recovery part, so replication between sites, if you have 2 Nutanix clusters and 2 sites, you can replicate the data, you can have metro availability. The backup part, we integrate, Nutanix integrate with all of the backup vendors, including Veeam. We have a tightly integration and a joint product with us and Veeam on this part. In terms of resiliency, so as we said, I am worried about my data and any corruption. So we here use the same capabilities as the normal cloud providers does. So we make sure that there are 2 copies or 3 copies of each data scattered across the cluster. So in case of any hard disk loss or node loss, we try to maintain this replication factor 2 or 3. We do data integrity checks and availability domains, even though the part for the security. So Nutanix is one of the highest secured HCI solutions in the market. In that terms, we have HIPAA certifications for healthcare. So in that terms, you can have a level 2, level 1, level 2 encryption to your data, whether it's on the hardware level or it's on the software level or it's on the wire as well. There is a good thing related to the security as well, is hardening with one click. So basically, any organization, they have an audit, and the audit comes and looks at all the vulnerabilities inside the system and try to highlight it. And IT management just looks at that as a part to fix, and it requires cost and effort and operation. So Nutanix has a feature in order to harden the entire system in one command and block all the vulnerabilities. And we use benchmark standards for that, which is used by all the auditors. Next type of storage is files, which is the NAS. So basically, if you have a VDI, if you have an application that requires pushing certain files, you have users inside your organization that needs a file share. So Nutanix as well has a built-in Nutanix file server, which can start from 1 terabyte to reaching up to 22 petabytes, just scalable in the same system. So why you should have Nutanix files instead of other silos like other vendors buying just one NAS box, or maybe having a Windows cluster with a file share. The idea is here the availability is guaranteed, as well as the same we spoke in the last slides about the block. So you have the availability built in, you don't have to worry about it. You do have the backup and the data protection, it's already built in there. You do have file analytics. So basically you can analyze the files that the users are using. You can integrate with your LDAP and Active Directory for the permissions. So all the permissions that you have on those files are guaranteed from the LDAP or the Active Directory. You can integrate with your antivirus, just add your antivirus server IP, and it will integrate with Nutanix and start scanning the files inside the system. And the idea here is I have an entire scalable NAS solution that is built in as well inside my same platform. I don't have to buy something extra else, and I can start, as we said, very, very small and go to higher. Very, very, very useful use case here is the VDI. So the good thing about it that you are having the VDI virtual machine for the end user in the same place that he places the data. So you don't have another file share or server or storage that you need to access externally out of the box in order to get the data. And the profile files that you have is accessed from the same place. So that brings a very good end user experience in terms of performance, and it makes the end user feel that he's on a normal desktop accessing his files very, very quick. And as well, we say it integrates with all of your infrastructure built in Microsoft solutions like Active Directory or the LDAPs. So what's the benefit from here? So we do support NFS and SMB, both of them, and we do support multi-protocol access as well. So if you are running from Mac or Linux and some others running from Windows with CIFS, I can access the same file with different protocol. I can scale up and scale out. So those file servers are built-in virtual machines that gets created by itself. And whenever there is a more demand, the more VMs that gets created in the background, and they can scale up as well in the resources. auditing and reporting. This is at your one-click place, so you can monitor and edit and see anomalies. So if someone's having a malware trying to access some other files, it's easier to identify that. It's completely built in inside Nutanix. So instead of having different silos like here, so this is your same infrastructure, just running the virtualization, the block storage, sliding files and object and everything into, let's say, we can start minimum with 2 units in the rack, and we can expand as a data center. The hypervisors. So as we said, the hypervisors that we work with is VMware Hyper-V, and we have a built-in hypervisor, which is the Acropolis hypervisor, Nutanix hypervisor. So basically, the Acropolis hypervisor is based on KVM. We have tweaked it to be completely enterprise ready, and we worked with designers from very known like Facebook, in order to make it very, very simple, much simpler than any other hypervisors that you're using in the market. So basically, any operations that you want to do through the Nutanix Prism, it takes 3 to 4 clicks. If it's more than that, get it to a re-engineering. You have all the features that you do have in any enterprise hypervisor. In relation to the RM backup. And today we're going to speak about how we do integrate with Veeam in order to back up EHV virtual machines. So in terms of benefits, it's a built-in high-performance hypervisor. It doesn't have limitations. So the good thing is you can, inside AWS, for example, you don't say, I want VMware or Hyper-V or this hypervisor. You just say, I want Windows Server with this resources, so you get that. So it's the same thing for EHV. The monitoring is in the same place, as well the hardening and the security vulnerabilities is handled from one click, so you can just close all the vulnerabilities from Nutanix platform. And it's completely built in. You don't have to pay extra for a hypervisor. It's completely built in and integrated inside Nutanix. And that takes us to the security part in terms of microsegmentation for the virtual machines. So EHV has a built-in feature called Flow. And Flow, what it does, it makes kind of a firewall, east-west firewall between the virtual machines. This kind of firewall works with an English language. So what is that is you can just easily write your policy on a paper, and you can implement it on top of Nutanix. You don't have to write something in access list or code. So for example, if I want to say I want to isolate the database from the development, production database from the development, you just write this and tag those VMs. Basically, it will show you the flow that's happening between all the tiers and the ports. And you can monitor this flow, stuff that's going inbound from outside to inside Nutanix, the virtual machines and the applications inside Nutanix. You can see the flow, and the outbound that's going out. And basically, you can understand, and we have an integration right now with other tools that we baked inside the solution that can tell you the dependencies of each application on each other. So it will tell you if it flows to a port here, what would be the impact. You can see even the queries that's running from one application to a database and vice versa, and what's the bandwidths that they are using and the ports that they are going on. And you can choose to close it. All of this is visually, and you don't have to be a big expert on a certain product in order to do that. So basically here, I want to isolate development from production, even though if they are in the same VLAN, the same subnet, in the same zone, I can completely isolate them and they don't communicate. So if you thought about the cloud, normally we are all having our stuff inside the cloud, Amazon or Azure or Google. We are all sharing the same cloud, but we are completely isolated from each other logically. So I can choose at any point to put one VM in another zone and it can be accessible. Applications as well, isolation, I can do that. Even in VDI, I can completely isolate an employee VDI from the contractor VDI. I can even, if there is a problem or a virus or something like that, I can completely quarantine certain VMs to be outside of the network till we fix the issue. So the idea of a built-in security here, it's completely virtualized and software defined. It's app-centric. It's looking at the applications, and it's very, very visual and easy to use. And it doesn't require too much of knowledge in order to manage it. So if you currently have a firewall solution like, let's say, Palo Alto or Fortinet, and maybe in IPS, so we integrate with something called service chaining in order to, if I need to do a deep packet inspection, I'll take this this packet and move it to whether Palo Alto or Fortinet for inspection, and it returns back. So I can as well integrate with the third-party firewalls in order to do more inspection on the data. Important part is automation and hybrid clouds. So I can create easily a private cloud inside my organization. And how does it work? So you're basically having Nutanix as a full stack, as an infrastructure. So there is a feature there called Nutanix Calm. So Calm is an orchestrator for infrastructure. So if I have a subsidiary of my company that I want to give it a cloud and I want to use them certain offerings or catalogs, like I want to create a 3-tier application that they can deploy at any time. So if I have a DevOps team, I can use Nutanix Calm and Blueprints in order to create this kind of application and offering to my end user. And I can offer it in a marketplace like this so they can do the consumption. And whether I can give them the control or I have the control to manage this. So they have, whether it's infrastructure as a service to their end, to have virtual machines, I can monitor that. I can look at the cost of what they are using. And as well, I can do an application, a 3-tier application as a service, platform as a service as well. I can do those blueprints whether I want to deploy them on-prem or I want to deploy them on a public cloud. It doesn't matter. So I can choose which infrastructure I want to deploy those blueprints and templates on. So it's end-to-end application lifecycle management, self-service governance, and it's a multi-cloud orchestration. So I can orchestrate different clouds from inside Nutanix. Last but not least here, so there are more features than that, but in terms of the time, I don't want to take too much time for the other session. Nutanix Era, which is built-in features for database as a service. So basically what we have in any organization, we have a lot of multiple engines of databases. Most of them are different sizes. I have lots of copies that are used for test and development, and even under production and pre-production. There is a complex operation for maintenance and lifecycle and monitoring for those databases. So what Nutanix does, as it does to simplifying the infrastructure, normal infrastructure in the data center, we've worked on simplifying the databases as well. So you have one screen for the entire database engines that you have, whether it's Microsoft, Oracle, Postgres, MongoDB, and you can see all your catalogs or your engines there. And basically, if the normal way that you provision a database, you do a request for the database, it goes to a certain configuration. It goes to the database admin. It requests storage for it, allocate the storage and set up the network, create a cluster and provision the database. Then I need to do a protection for this database. And then the end user or the application owner gets the database. So basically in Nutanix, you just specify the engine, which is Oracle, Microsoft, or whatever database that you want. The configuration, it does automatically by Nutanix itself. There is sets of time machine as backup to be taken for it, and the end user gets the database. There is a time machine inside Nutanix Era. So basically, if I want to get back, let's say yesterday at 6:30 p.m. for my database, we have patent in that, so in which we read the logs of the database and we can revert the database to a certain point in time, back in time, in seconds, if we need. So I can easily have a one-click refresh to my entire database, or a copy or a clone of it at a certain point in time back in the calendar. I can take snapshots and backups and restore those backups later on. So basically, you have simplified all your databases in one platform. The part for the patching and the upgrading for the database is done through Nutanix Era. The thing is, for the maintenance, it's completely done, and the backup and the time machine helps in that to make sure that you have different copies of the databases for the test and dev and production. And we are using the same capabilities of compression and deduplication in order to make sure the data efficiency. So the more copies that I have of the database, that doesn't mean I have the entire database copied again. So I'm using pointers in order to work that. And it's all running in a very high performance SSDs. So what are our use cases here? So basically, Nutanix fits in all the use cases and the applications that you might think of, starting from business critical applications and databases to end user computing and VDI, remote branches, and like security and highly defense sites, to messaging, collaboration, test and dev, big data, server virtualization. So most of the use cases that you see in the market can run on Nutanix. There is no limitation there. So why you should consider Nutanix? So Nutanix is the inventor of the HCI technology. We're always at the top of our third-party analyzers here, whether it's Gartner, Forrester, or IDC. We are almost the leaders. So Net Promoter Score. So this is very important here. So if you want to look at any technology that you need to buy, the Net Promoter Score benchmark lets you know what is the support looks like for any of anything that you need to buy. So basically Nutanix has a very, very good high support score in the NPS. And if you look at different vendors that you could work with, so Nutanix in terms of after sale and support, it's something that I hope it stays like that for a long while. So we are simple. This is a single interface, no plugins. It's a one-click operation. And everything is built in. You don't have to move between different silos or different screens. It's scalable because it's based on the cloud technology, so you can scale as much with no downtime and high availability. And as well, it's flexible. You can choose whatever hypervisor you want to run, hardware, location, cloud, and configuration. Thank you very much, everyone. I'm going to leave the part for the data protection here and the backup part and integration with Nutanix for Muhammad Risk from Veeam. Muhammad, you have the the screen.
Thank you, Ahmed.
Thank you so much, Ahmed. Thank you so much, Ahmed. Next, we have Mohammed Rizk, who will be taking us through the backup and recovery for Nutanix Enterprise Cloud by Veeam. Over to you, Mohammed.
Okay, thank you. You can see my screen.
Yes, please just go
Okay.
your presentation full screen.
Okay, great. So, hi everyone, I'm Mohammed Rizk, Director of Technical Sales for Veeam and Middle East. First, I hope all of you are safe, and hopefully next time we will be in a physical event. And thank you for Redington and Nutanix and their support for this webinar. So the topic of my presentation and session would be the data protection part, and especially the integration with Nutanix. Legacy backup solutions, whatever brand name it, are usually limited, complex, inflexible, and expensive. And you can know that from the amount of customers looking for a new data protection solution and new thinking and all of that. So putting agents on virtual machines for whatever reason is not the way to go anymore. Being locked to a certain hardware or cloud or whatever is not what the customers want. Customers do not want to worry about the backup, and they don't want to worry about recovery. They just want guarantee and peace of mind that in case of any disaster, their services and workloads would be available again in the shortest time possible. And that's why Veeam vision is that we want to be the leader in backup and cloud data management. And since day one, we promised the customers 3 promises: that will always stay a simple solution, yet very powerful one, and you will see later how. To be flexible and never lock them to a specific hardware, to a specific cloud. To always give them the flexibility to put their backup wherever they want, and to be reliable, that they don't face issues with backup, recovery, and all of that. So from that perspective, and because of those promises, Veeam right now have more than 375,000 customers. We are in 160 countries worldwide, and most important of all, we have an NPS score of 75, which is 3 times the average NPS score for any other vendor. So almost 9 of 10 customers of Veeam would recommend Veeam to other customers. And that shows you how much confident the customers are about Veeam. Specifically in Middle East, we have more than 3,000 customers. And we are present in UAE, physically in UAE, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Egypt, and we cover the whole Middle East from those countries. If any of you thinks that Veeam is still a backup solution for virtual environment, I would like and hope that you change your perception of Veeam after this webinar. Right now, Veeam is not anymore only a backup solution for virtual environment like VMware and Hyper-V. Veeam right now is offering a complete platform to protect your virtual, physical servers, software as a service like Office 365, and cloud, whether Azure, Amazon, IBM Cloud, whatever cloud you have. And whatever hypervisor you have, specifically if you have VMware, Hyper-V, and Nutanix AHV, will protect it natively with image-based backup and snapshot-based backup. We have not only backup, but we provide replication, monitoring, orchestration, and we allow you to leverage your backup files. Veeam is not like any other data protection solution or vendor, where the backup files are passive, are not portable, are not mobile. With Veeam, the backup files can be leveraged and can be utilized for multiple purposes, like security auditing, testing, creating a test environment for updates, patches, whatever. And you will see how in the next slides. So from high-level perspective, that's the high-level architecture of Veeam. You can install Veeam on virtual machines or physical servers. You can scale it out horizontally and up vertically easily by adding virtual proxies, which are the muscles that read, write the data and deduplicate it. You can add easily backup storage without requirement to move and migrate backup repositories. And you can archive it to the tapes or even to the cloud. And we support any object storage like Azure Blob, AWS S3, or S3 compatible cloud storage. And you can have immutable backup chain on any S3 compatible object storage. Therefore, if, God forbid, if your environment was hit by ransomware, your backup files are immutable to this ransomware. Even the admin, you can lock the backup files such that the administrator himself cannot change the backup files until the retention period expires. From a backup perspective of virtual machines, we have built in deduplication and compression, and without any additional cost, independent of your backup storage. We do have CBT, change block tracking for VMware, Hyper-V, Nutanix AHV, and later on you will see that we have it also for physical servers or any kind of hypervisor. So technically, during incremental backup, we just go directly to the changed files and change blocks instead of reading the whole data to detect the changes. We do pure agentless backup, and at the same time, we give you the assurance that you will have application consistent backup like truncation of logs for Exchange, SQL, Oracle, etc. And you will be able to granularly restore any item, although you are doing agentless backup. So Veeam is the only solution. And I repeat that we are the only solution in the market that have 100% agentless backup for virtual environments. We offer encryption based on a 256-bit encryption algorithms, and you can automate anything from backups perspective, schedule, policies, and all of that. And as I mentioned, we have built-in application-aware processing. That means we can do application-consistent backup of Active Directory, Exchange, SQL, SharePoint, Oracle databases, MySQL, PostgreSQL, and any application that accepts prescripts, postscripts, or have VSS writers. For physical servers, we can, whether Windows or Linux, we have agents that can back up the entire server or endpoint like laptops. We can do volume level backup, file level backup. The destination can be anything: local storage, shared folder, backup representative, deduplication appliances, cloud storage, and even OneDrive if you want. We do application-aware processing, as I mentioned, same as for physical servers, same as I mentioned for virtual machines. But on virtual machines, we're doing agentless. On physical servers, of course, we need an agent for that. And we have CPT drivers for physical servers and endpoints. That means we go directly to the changes, read the changes, and we track the changes automatically and without any need to read the full data again during incremental backup. There is parallel processing, parallel backup encryption, and we can create recovery media and all of that. And we can truncate the logs. And in case of endpoints and laptops, you can resume backup even if it stops. Same for Linux, we have the same features. And I need to stress on the point that we support Oracle RAP clusters, SAP HANA clusters. We are certified from Oracle and SAP HANA. And we support Windows clusters such as Exchange DAG, failover clusters of SQL, or always on, whether virtual or physical. Now, last year, we introduced the support for NAS. Usually, and legacy backup solutions protects NAS using NDMP protocol, but NDMP cannot be used anymore, especially with the data growth that we are having right now on NAS. So Veeam introduced a very unique way to protect NAS backup, which supports any NAS storage you have and whatever protocol you are using, whether SMB version 1, 2, 3, NFS version 3, 4.1, whether you have dedicated NAS storage or you have Windows file server, Windows server acting as a Windows file server or Linux file server. Introduced for NAS is that we introduced something called change file tracking. So NDMP requires reading the full data again and again during incremental backup. And you cannot have more than 10 incremental backups almost before doing again a full backup. And even if you want to restore with NDMP, you need to restore exactly to the same model, same brand of your NAS storage. You cannot restore it anywhere else. So with Veeam NAS backup, we don't use the NDMP and we introduce CFT, which is change file tracking, where we track the changes on the files. And during incremental backup, where you can do for every incremental backup, we directly go to the changed files. We traverse the directory and the structure of the NAS file system directly without reading the whole data. So we go directly to the changes. And just to give you a perception of how this is important, we did a proof of concept for a customer who had 10 million files in 1,000 folder, around, if I'm not mistaken, around 44 terabytes or something like that. We did incremental backup in 30 minutes, while other competitors needed 6 hours and their backup failed. So imagine that. So our backup is super fast for NAS backup. Also, we support if the files are locked, we again try to backup it again, or take snapshot backup, and we provide you with point-in-time recoverability and restore, and we offload the performance to some to other hardware. From restore perspective, whether you have and I will talk about it later also, but specifically for VMware and Hyper-V, you can do instant VM recovery. So if you lost one virtual machine, you can directly boot it up from the backup storage in less than 5 minutes, independent of the number of virtual machines, independent of the size of the virtual machines. And whenever you would want, you can migrate the virtual machine in the background while the users are accessing your virtual machines. So I did the proof of concept for myself one time, for example, on 2 file servers, which were 16 terabytes in total. They booted up directly from the backup storage in less than 2 minutes. So in less than 2 minutes, 16 terabytes virtual machines were up and running. In the background, we recovered those virtual machines. We took the same idea and applied it to other workloads, whether you have cloud VMs, whether you have Nutanix AHV VMs, whether you have physical servers like Windows, Linux, laptops, desktops, you can instantly recover anything as a virtual machine. Imagine you have a 10 terabyte physical server, and that physical server just failed, and you don't have any other physical server in the background, and then in the inventory that you would like to have to restore to. So in Veeam, you can automatically, directly, recover that physical server as a virtual machine, unless instantly you can boot it up as a virtual machine. And that applies to any other workloads, by the way. Also, if you would like to migrate to cloud, you can directly restore anything as an Azure instance or a instance without requiring any staging area or complex configuration or whatever. You just right click, restore to Azure, restore to AWS. Now, from physical service perspective, you can restore also, as I said, the application items. You can instantly recover to Hyper-V, VMware. You can do volume restores, guest files restores, single files granularly, or to public cloud. From application items, just to give you an idea, and the Explorer, for example, for Exchange, you can recover any single email, any single mailbox, any deleted item, whether on Office 365, by the way, or on Exchange on-prem, same interface, and you can restore it anywhere. Same for example, database. Perspective. That's the interface for Veeam 1. It can monitor your production environment, whether you have VMware, Hyper-V, Nutanix AHV, and if you are doing backup for physical servers, and we can monitor your backup environment, like if you have backup environment, you with web, you access it from anywhere, and also you can schedule reports, and you can schedule. That's just one sample of it. For example, restore operator activity report, which gives you an insight on who restored what at what time, which item, and so forth. From security auditing perspective, from security perspective, and from management perspective, you will know exactly who restored what and to where. Now, when it comes to Nutanix, as Ahmed mentioned in his presentation, Veeam by default supports Nutanix hardware. And we can back up from Nutanix to anywhere. However, taking the hyper-converged infrastructure idea to further, where the customers would love to have the power of Nutanix hardware, simplicity of Nutanix hardware, and the simplicity of Veeam software, Veeam solution, the power of Veeam solution, and they want, for that, they want to have that combined solution pre-configured and installed on their data center. So with the Nutanix Mine, you will have pre-configured solution that comes pre-installed from the factory. It is hyper-converged solution with Veeam and Nutanix hardware. You will use Nutanix hardware and infrastructure as a backup target while you are using another cluster as a production cluster. And from there, you can archive your backup if you want to Nutanix objects, S3 compatible storage, or tapes, or cloud if you want. Or you can keep it just on the Nutanix Mine. So Nutanix Mine is, again, a hyper-converged solution from Veeam and Nutanix. Veeam is installed on Nutanix Mine, and the backup files are stored as a first target on Nutanix Mine. The beauty of it is that you will have also single management interface, which is Prism, and it is compatible with whatever workloads you have, whether Nutanix, physical servers, Hyper-V, vSphere, virtual desktops, whatever workloads you have, we can back up it. And if you have, for example, Nutanix files, NAS, we can back up it on Nutanix Mine itself. So in less than 1 week, you will have a scalable solution running up and running and protecting your infrastructure. And even if you have Veeam already, and you would like to have Nutanix Mine, because the Nutanix Mine comes with Veeam licenses also. So you don't need to purchase, it's a single SKU, it's a single solution. You don't need to purchase a Veeam licenses separately and Nutanix appliance separately. It's a converged solution that comes with Veeam licenses. But some of you might have Veeam already. They don't need, Nutanix Mine can come without Veeam licenses, and you can put the existing Veeam licenses that you have. So the pre-configured models that we have supports any size of environment you have, whether extra small, medium, or enterprise, like scale-out system. And as you can see, we have different models to accommodate for everything. You can have 48 terabyte capacity, raw capacity, 96 terabyte, or even 192 terabytes. The dashboard, and from Nutanix Prism, you can see that you can monitor Nutanix itself and the hypervisors and Veeam environment, and you can manage everything from a single management console. That's all from my perspective. If you have any questions, please let me know.